everybody. My name is Marissa. I am a certified personal trainer and registered dietitian. I did it. I finally got through all of the schooling, my internship. I passed my exam on my first try. Life is great. And this video has actually been requested so often over the years, but I never felt qualified to talk about anything, which is silly because it's my personal experience. I've gone through this, but I wanted to make sure I could get from point A to point B before I gave any advice on it, gave any tips and tricks. So now I can confidently say I know what I'm talking about and I can help you whether you are just interested in the dietetics field or you just are looking for some study tips to pass your RD exam. I am going to take you through when I first applied to college, my major, all the way through what I did to pass the exam. So with that said, it will be a semi-long video. I'll try and keep it as short and simple as possible. And also I understand that you may be watching and you might be in a completely different phase of your program. Maybe you're in your internship or you're looking to match to places right now. So with that said, I am going to leave the timestamps in the description so you can go to the point that's most appropriate for you and where you're at. Also, I want you to take note of the fact that I am only talking about my experience, and everybody's path to becoming a dietitian is so vastly different that I am not gonna tell you this is the only video you need to watch to succeed or to know exactly where you want to go in this field. I highly recommend watching multiple videos from different people, getting a feel for what's really out there and what are the options for you personally. Because what worked for me might not be the best choice for you. What worked for somebody else wasn't the right choice for me. So keep that in mind as we dive into this. But a lot of what I'm talking about is going to be universal, and this is the process. I'm gonna take you through front to back what this process actually is like. So this first section is going to be about undergrad. Where did I go to school? What did I major in? Because I did make a big mistake. I mean, it wasn't life-changing, a life-altering mistake, but it was something that you can really easily avoid with a little bit of extra research. When I applied for the University of Florida, I did not know what a dietitian was. I just knew that I wanted to go into nutrition. I had a passion for it. I really had a need to help people in this area, but I had no idea what that would look like, what I had to major as. So when I applied to UF, I just looked through all the different majors and I saw nutritional sciences. So I thought, oh, nutritional sciences, that must be what I need to major as, right? That was incorrect. I ended up having to switch my major because there is a big difference between nutritional sciences and dietetics, which is the major that you will want to pursue if you are on the path to becoming a registered dietitian. Nutritional sciences major is pre-med. If you are looking to go pre-vet, pre-dental, any type of healthcare field outside of becoming a dietitian, but you are particularly interested in nutrition, nutritional sciences would be the path for you, but it was not for me. Once I got there, I realized that nutritional sciences would not be the avenue to get me to my end goal of, once I did a little bit of research, becoming a registered dietitian. So I did have to change my major pretty quickly. Some of the core classes were the same, so it wasn't, that crazy for me to switch from nutritional sciences to dietetics, but if you can avoid that, I would recommend it. And knowing that you want to become a registered dietitian and go into a dietetics major will also help you research colleges, finding out which program is going to be right for you. Because I wasn't 100% sure on that, I only applied to, University of Florida and FIU, Florida International University, because to me, those were the only schools from my research that I would be able to do that, which actually wasn't the case. For example, I could have applied to FSU, Florida State University. They actually have a really great nutrition program there as well. So just keep that in mind when you are looking at colleges. Not every college is going to have that. There were a lot of different colleges in Florida that I looked at, but unfortunately, not every single one had the dietetics major. Now, I don't know how that's going to change over time, but you do want to really keep that in mind when you're applying. Basically, don't go to a school that doesn't have dietetics or doesn't have something in nutrition that you know you're going to be able to pursue that RD with. If you want specific terminology that will help you with your research, DPD program. Didactic program in dietetics. So that was the particular program I pursued at the University of Florida. So now let's chat a little bit about what you do once you get accepted to a program. I had no idea the first whole year I was at UF what becoming a registered dietitian would entail. At the end of freshman year, I had to attend kind of like a seminar with other dietetics majors and dietetics seniors, where the seniors would come up and talk about the program and where they were going for their internships and all of that. And I'm just sitting there like, wow, this is a lot more work than I thought. So it's always a good thing to note going into it, but if you are truly passionate about helping people, like you know your core why, the reason you're in this field, it will not be that bad. You know, same thing with someone who's going into pre-med, someone who wants to pursue becoming a doctor. If you are not actually passionate, like if you're really only doing it for the money or doing it for the wrong reasons, you're not gonna make it. These are rigorous programs. Now, becoming a dietitian is not as rigorous as becoming a doctor, but I definitely realized that I would have my hands full. When I first got to UF, I was taking, you know, your basic gen ed courses. Now, the only thing that will make my situation a little bit different from a lot of people is I did an early college program in high school where I attended a community college for the last 2 years of high school. And I actually gained my associate's degree at the same time I graduated from high school. So when I went to UF, I had the idea that I would only need to be there for 2 years because I already completed my first 2 years and I'm trying to get a bachelor, you know, 2 + 2 = 4 years of college and all of that. I ended up staying for 3 years because I needed more experience. This is a big, important topic when you are going into the dietetics field. You're going to have to put together a resume when you are applying to these internships. You need to have experience. What really helped me was that I was in food service a lot of my life. My first real job was being a hostess, and then I worked at an acai bowl and smoothie place a lot of high school. So I, even before college, was doing a lot in food service, which is a big part of the dietetics field. So that helped me a lot. I also got involved with the food science and human nutrition club at my school. Now, my best advice to you, if you have the time for it, is to try and get a leadership role of some sort in those types of clubs or extracurricular activities at your school. It really just shows initiative. You want to build out your resume in a way that shows a lot of initiative. So basically, when you get to college, don't go in with the mindset of, okay, I'm just gonna go to my classes, do my homework, study for my exams, and I'm gonna have all this free time. If you really want to get somewhere in this field and make it to a place where you match to internships, which we will talk about in a second, you need to be doing other things outside of your schoolwork. You need to find some volunteer opportunities, and there's certain areas that you'll want to look for those things. So the core areas are going to be clinical, research, food service, and community. So working in the community in some sort, which can be just as simple as working at a food bank. So there are a lot of different areas you can pursue volunteer-wise really early on. Unfortunately, you're not gonna get paid for it, but buckle up because you're not gonna get paid for a lot of things at first. I did not get any clinical experience in undergrad because the semester when I was ready to start reaching out to the local hospitals, COVID happened. And because of that, everything turned virtual. We know the whole situation. And I wasn't able to get any of that really core clinical experience. And that was one thing I felt my resume was really lacking because they do look for that. Luckily though, I had some sales positions. I worked as a campus manager for a custom apparel company, which granted was not nutrition related, but it still showed leadership skills. I also was able to work at a lab on campus and help conduct a research study. With my work history and my volunteer work I did as well, it really helped give me a well-rounded resume. It wasn't the perfect resume, but look, you don't need it to be perfect. I still got where I wanted to be without having a clinical experience in undergrad, for example. For you, it might be something different, but I do recommend trying to get that clinical experience. It will teach you a lot. Now, there's gonna be other things that you'll need besides a resume. Once you get to that point in your undergrad, you will need a few letters of recommendation. You'll need a cover letter or a letter of intent. And I'm not gonna get too deep into those details because your DPD program, your program advisors, your director will be able to guide you through that. When I was in junior year, I had classes designated for helping us get those materials that we would need for applying for these internships together. So that helped a ton because I was able to go to class but actually work on things that were gonna get me further in the career as far as applying for internships goes. So that was super, super helpful. I'm not 100% sure that every program does that, but if you do your research and you find a good DPD program at a good university, they will have resources for you. The staff are there to help you and to guide you. Do not ever feel like you shouldn't be asking for help because they are truly there for that purpose. They are only there to help you succeed. As far as like getting all these things together, you'll figure it out. The only thing I would say about that is make sure you are building relationships with your professors, especially the professors that you have specifically for nutrition and dietetics courses, because those people are going to be your best friends when asking for letters of recommendation, for figuring out how I'm supposed to build out my resume, what's going to be the most important things to put on there. They are going to be your best mentors through this because they've been through it and they help students do it every single year. So don't be afraid, but also ask early. I was one of the first people to ask one of my professors as well as my DPD director for a letter of recommendation. And I think that really helped because that kind of put me at the front of their mind when it came to writing these letters. And so I got them in a really timely manner. I also had some other connections outside of the university, that people that were in research. So that helped me as well to be able to gather a really strong 3 letters of recommendation. I didn't need more than that. You probably won't either. So stick to, like, really think about who can be your core 3. Now, I don't have to give you all of the boring stuff talking about each individual class you're gonna have to take, because you have program advisors at your university for that reason. They will help you build out a schedule if you're not 100% sure what you have to do. I got a whole list of the requirements, and as I would go through each semester, I would check off one by one each class that I had completed or each class that I'm going to complete in that semester. And that really helped keep me on track. I kept the same piece of paper for those 3 years, and every semester I would look at it and I would pick out my classes and make sure that I had it all organized. So I knew for a fact that once I got to the end, I would be able to meet all the requirements, not have to stay longer, like stay an extra summer to complete extra classes. So just make sure you stay on top of things. That's gonna be your biggest asset, is organizational skills, because it can get a little tedious along the way. But I know so far I've really talked about how much work this is. I do want to ease your mind a little bit. I was not a 4.0 student. I can't even remember honestly what my GPA was. I think it was around a 3.3 by the time I graduated from UF. I got C's along the way. It's true that C's get degrees. I barely coasted by, like with the bare minimum on really tough sciences like organic chemistry 1 and 2. It's okay. Do not freak out so much about your GPA. Just make sure that if your GPA isn't outstanding, that you're also making sure you're getting those volunteer hours, really crafting a well-rounded resume, because that is going to help you, along with your letters of recommendation, way more than having straight A's. So I really hope that helps in some way. Now it is time to talk about applying for internships. This is going to be so different for everybody, and there are multiple different types of internships. In this video, I'm only going to talk about the ones that I know how to articulate very well, which are distance internships and your dual master's internships, often called MSDIs, or if it's a master's in public health, it's an MPHDI, which I have a funny story about. So when it comes to applying for internships, you really want to think about, what are your goals? What are the things you're really looking for? What's really important to you when looking for an internship? For me, that was location. I knew I wanted to move back to the area I was living in before I moved to Gainesville, Florida, because I did not like Gainesville. I wanted to leave. And where else was I gonna go? I wanted to be closer to my family again. So I knew that the Tampa Bay area was really gonna be where I'm looking for internships. And so I ended up narrowing it down to just 2 different internship programs. One was that MPHDI, so I would be getting a master's and do my internship at the same time and graduate, completing my internship hours and gaining a master's degree. Or I could do what is called a distance internship, which is a little bit different. The way you apply for these internships is gonna be pretty much the same. You have to go through a certain software. It's really tedious to set up. The application processes are really long. And then you have to do interviews in some cases. The interviews are really nerve-wracking. For simplicity's sake, I'm just gonna talk about what I did and what helped me get through this time. I only applied to 2 places. You can absolutely apply to more. Honestly, you can apply to as many as you want. Just keep in mind that each one is gonna have an application fee. If I knew I had it narrowed down to 2, why would I apply to 5 when A, I didn't even want to go to those other 3, and B, it would be really costly for me to do so. So I narrowed it down to 2. What happens with this is very weird to other people outside the healthcare field, but basically you are going to match to a certain program. You will rank which programs you would want to attend in order from highest priority to lowest priority, and then the internships will rank you on a scale as well, and you'll basically end up matching to the one where you have the highest priority, but they also prioritize you. It's scary. It's really scary. I did not enjoy that process, but I put the MPHDI program as my number 1, really because of the fact that I would be getting a master's at the same time. I thought that was really cool. I really didn't know too much the route that I wanted to go with that. I pretty much left it up to God. I was like, you know, these are my 2 choices, whatever is going to be the best fit for me will happen. And I promise you that that is true. If you do not match to your first choice, it was not meant to be. I had the craziest aha moment like 8 months after I didn't match to my first choice. For the distance program, I had to complete a video interview. It was like a video application, not really an interview. There was nobody behind the screen talking to me. I had to talk to myself for 2 minutes and explain why I wanted to be a part of the program. And I submitted that, and that was what they did instead of an interview, because the distance program is based in Boston and took students from all over the country. And so they would not have the bandwidth to interview every single person individually. So that's what we had to do. And then for the MPHDI program, I had to do a regular interview, but it was a phone call interview. It was not in person because back then, same thing, COVID was happening and systems were still in place to keep people out of contact with each other. I didn't like being on the phone and not being on Zoom because I couldn't read their body language. They were extremely monotone when talking to me, and that made me so nervous that I fumbled. I did not do well on that interview call whatsoever. In my letter of intent, I forget what it's called, it has a different name, but my letter explaining to them why I wanted to go to their program, I called it an MSDI when it was actually an MPHDI, Masters of Public Health. The director actually brought it up to me on the call that I had made a mistake, and at that point, I pretty much knew it was over. I also messed up on a really simple question. They asked me some nutrition related questions. So that's another tip. Make sure you have like a good idea of the very, very basic fundamentals, like how to calculate BMI, how to calculate ideal body weight, and all of those things before getting onto an interview. They might not ask you any nutrition-based questions, or they will quiz you. I got quizzed. I got asked like 3 or 4 questions, and I was so not confident at that point because of the way they were speaking with me that I just had a really horrible time on that interview. And after that, I did not feel good about it. I still ranked them as number 1 because, I don't know, I was very stubborn and stagnant with my decision. And I was just like, you know what? I wanted them to be number 1, so I'm gonna keep them as such. When really I should have probably flipped the 2 around. After researching the distance internship more, it seemed way more up my alley. But all in all of that stuff happens between January and February, and then you have to wait until April. April 5th, specifically for me, was my match day to find out if you even matched to a program. I'm sure there are videos out there from people who did not match, so definitely, if you're in that situation, I would recommend go watching other people's experience with that. Honestly, it's been so long that I kind of forget what that process is after the fact. I know there ends up being a bank of programs that are still accepting interns, and so if you do not match, it's not the end of the world. You can still find a great program that way. Things will be okay if you do not match. I was putting myself on the line because just as I only applied to 2 universities, UF and FIU, and I had no intention of going to FIU because it was all the way in Miami and my parents would never let me go that far. I placed all my bets on UF. In this same situation, I placed all my bets on 2 programs, and not a lot of people do that. A lot of people at least fill out the top 3, but I had faith. I had a lot of faith that this was going to work and that whatever my path was meant to be, it will be. And sure enough, on April 5th, I matched to Wellness Workday's Dietetic internship, which is based in Boston. It is a distance internship. So now we will get into what that type of program entails and how it's different from a dual master's MSDI program. So when you are pursuing an MSDI, you will be taking your college courses and doing those assignments on top of your internship. This is going to be super rigorous, and your entire life is going to revolve around completing this MSDI. Those typically take, I believe, 1 to 2 years to complete. This will depend on when you're watching this, but if you are watching this in 2024 or or later, it is required for registered dietitians to have a master's in order to even sit for the credentialing exam. So keep that in mind. For me, I didn't have to worry about it. And that really eased my mind a lot because, you know, I was also at this time running my online personal training business at the same time. And I knew that it was probably for the best that I didn't pursue a master's in tandem with my internship, because that would not have worked out very well for my mental health. I would have been burnt out. I have heard so many stories of interns pursuing an MSDI and getting so burnt out, it's hard to keep going. So I was very thankful that I ended up matching to my second choice, which you would think, okay, you're probably gonna be super bummed out about that, but I wasn't. I knew that that was what I was supposed to do. And so the way that a distance internship is different is, depending on the program, you could also do a master's. My particular program gave you two different options for universities. You could pursue an online master's at the same time. Both of the universities were out of state, so I would have to pay for out-of-state tuition, and I was not about that. I said no thank you to the master's and just pursued the internship by itself. I chose to do full-time internship. When you are doing an internship through a university and you're doing an MSDI, they are going to choose where you complete your internship hours. With a distance internship, you have to find your own preceptors, which are the dietitians that you are going to be essentially working for full time. And that can be really difficult for some people. So you have to think about what's going to make the most sense for you. Everybody's different in that aspect. For me, I actually really liked the fact that I could continue doing what I do with personal training, but also be able to pursue my hours in places that really felt right to me. It wasn't a cookie cutter program in the sense that, you know, I'd be spending 4 months at this hospital doing this type of care when really I didn't want to do that too much. I really would have preferred time in community nutrition, for example. I got to completely individualize my experience and make it completely unique to me. And that's why I really liked doing a distance internship. Granted, it's a little bit more work in the aspect that you need to be constantly reaching out to people to find preceptors and programs that are willing to take interns. On the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics website, they have a Find a Preceptor tab where you can go and preceptors will actually display on there a short bio about themselves, where they work, and invite you to get in contact with them. You get their email and you can either contact them right within the A&D website or you can email them outside of it. No matter what you pursue for an internship, whether it's an MSDI or a distance internship, there are going to be 3 main categories of places where you will be completing your internship hours: food service, community, and clinical. And for me, for my particular program, I was able to actually pursue a concentration, and I chose sports nutrition as my concentration. I was able to do sports nutrition, food service, then clinical, then community. I got to work at a bunch of different places instead of maybe staying with the same 2-3 places. And as far as how I found my preceptors, 2 of them I found on the A&D Find a Preceptor website. The next one I found from an Excel file that my internship program advisor sent me with a bunch of list of preceptors in my area. And then the last one, I had a connection. I knew somebody who worked at a hospital that I was able to kind of get in that way. So folks, it's not what you know, it's who you know a lot of the time. So that really helped me solidify my 4 core preceptors and internship experience for my hours. And keep in mind that you will have to complete 1,000 supervised practice hours in these areas. And you don't need me to tell you that because you will learn that along the way, regardless of if I tell you that or not. But once you are done with your undergrad, you're going to pursue an internship, whether it's an internship with a master's or an internship just on its own. For me, I just did the internship on its own. I started August 28th, 2021, and I finished, I believe, April 15th, 2022. My 2 biggest tips for going through your internship Actually, 3 biggest tips is stay organized, stay on top of your stuff, especially if you're in a distance internship. It actually requires a little bit more preparation because you are doing so much on your own. So keep that in mind. Also, make sure that you are still doing things that you love outside of the internship. You will get burnt out so fast if you are full steam ahead, not allowing yourself to do anything else, not pursue any of your hobbies. Even just relaxing can make a huge difference and in keeping you alive and functioning and not having a huge burnout or panic attack. There were plenty of times during my internship where I bawled my eyes out. I think I cried at 2 of my sites, and I don't mean just like small tears, I mean like full on like hives, panic attack, freaking out. Granted, I was going through some pretty awful hardship at the same time, but it was just the stress of everything can really get overwhelming sometimes. You have to just think about your core reason for getting through this. You will get through it. Once you're in the internship, you can kind of breathe a little in the sense that, you know, you got through undergrad, you applied to internships, you got accepted to an internship, you're almost there. You just have to hold on and make the most out of it. There are going to be assignments on top of your hours that you'll have to complete. Some preceptors are really chill about letting you complete your assignments at the sites. I was really fortunate to have a couple preceptors that allowed me to do that. Some places, on the other hand, you will not be able to touch your outside work until you get home. Also, a little side note, I am completely rambling. I did not prepare a script for this video, so granted, it could be more structured. If you feel like there are some things that you think I should have elaborated more on, or if you have any additional questions on things that I did not answer in this video, please comment them below, because I am more than happy to make a part 2 to this video, answering your most common questions or anything like that, or elaborating on any experiences that I had in the internship. Okay, so we talked about getting into a university, going through your undergrad, applying for internships, going through your internship, but what happens when you are done with your internship hours and you have to prepare for the RD exam, the dreaded exam that everybody talks about, that is such a big deal. I've heard so many dietitians say that this is the hardest exam they've ever taken in their life, and I think I agree, because I mean, nothing can prepare you for this exam except for your experience from undergrad and your internship. Also, I forgot to mention that I remember I had a story for you about why I didn't match to my #1 program. And so here it is. I was with one of my preceptors and we were just driving in the car. You know, we had just gone to a site, a rehab facility, talked to some people, and we were on our way to get lunch. And I told her that I had applied to said program, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I was the first graduating class of that program and I was miserable the whole time. You dodged a bullet." She was also pregnant at the time of her internship, and apparently she had like no slack given to her. Everyone's experiences are unique. Someone could have had a really amazing experience with it, but my preceptor and I were pretty similar. So I knew in that moment, I'm like, wow, I can't even imagine what life would be like right now if I did actually match with my first choice. To be honest, I am so happy and relieved that I did match to my second choice, even though it was my second choice. So with that said, now let's talk about the internship being complete, what you have to do. Basically, you get the okay, the seal that, hey, you're ready to take the exam from your internship, and then you will get an email from the Commission on Dietetic Registration to sign up for your exam. The exam is $200, and if you're familiar with this process by now, you've gone through your undergrad, your internship, and all of that, you've probably paid a lot of money by now, if not taken out some loans. So this $200 just really stings when you have to pay it, because you're like, this better be it for me. I better not have to take this freaking thing again and pay the extra $200 again. Because this is the most fresh in my mind, this will be probably the easiest thing for me to talk about in this entire video is what my process was getting to scheduling the exam to actually passing it on the first try. Once I scheduled the exam, which I highly recommend doing right away, do not wait. Do not wait until you feel more prepared, because you will not feel 100% prepared or even 90% prepared ever. You just have to schedule it and bite the bullet. I knew myself and I knew my study habits thus far, so I decided I would give myself 6 weeks to study for this exam. Some people take it in 3 weeks. One of my preceptors said that he actually took it a week after he finished the internship, which I thought was batshit crazy. If you studied throughout your internship, like really hit the books and studied for this particular exam, then maybe you can take it sooner than I did. Some people take up to 4 months. It's really gonna depend on your schedule. Like if you have a full-time job, chances are you're not also gonna be studying 8 hours a day. So you need to keep in mind how many hours you can actually dedicate a week to studying. I looked at All Access Dietetics for guidance. They had a free beginner kit and they recommended that you study for a minimum of 100 hours. For context, I actually kept tabs on how many hours a day I studied, what days and what topics I studied. They had an Excel file for me to map all of this out. So that really helped me stay on track and make sure that, okay, I definitely hit that 100 mark. I ended up studying for 179 hours for this exam, but that included listening to podcasts, things that I did during my internship, not just once my internship finished. So this was total. Before even beginning to study, I needed to know what this exam was about. I needed to know how it was structured, the pass rate, and all of that. At the time of filming this, the pass rate is around 68% for the first time, and it drops down to about 32% for the second time. I am not going to tell you in this video everything about the exam because I think it is important for you to go do that on your own, because that really gave me a lot of insight. And once I did that, I realized, oh crap, this is serious. So once you learn what the exam is about and what you really need to be focusing on, which is a lot of situational things, a lot of critical thinking, that's when you can start putting together a study plan. I told myself that I was going to study from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day. That did not end up happening. I usually started studying in the afternoons and going until the evenings. That's just what ended up working for me. And I was pretty happy about that because I had to schedule my exam for 5 p.m. on a Thursday when I was really hoping for an earlier morning slot. But it ended up helping me in a sense that I was able to study for a few hours before my exam and then give myself a huge break in between. I told myself I was going to study Monday through Friday, which ended up being true. I was going to give myself a break on weekends. This, I think, is so important. Giving yourself breaks, not burning out. Because this is the last step. You do not want to get a week out from your exam and feel like you can't continue anymore. Give yourself breaks. Also, do not try and study for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours on end without any type of lunch break or any break in and of itself, because your brain will not retain the information. At least from what I saw, 3 hours is the maximum amount of time you should spend in the books without a significant break. So that's what I would do. I would study for 3 hours, take about an hour break, eat some food, relax, and do another 3-hour interval. Some days, once I got closer, I was definitely studying more though. So for those first 5 weeks, it was Monday through Friday, around 4 to 6 hours a day. I'm not gonna say that I studied for 6 hours a day every day. The minimum I studied was 4, and that just depended on, my schedule, what I had going on that day. The week leading up to my exam, that's when I really went all in. I was studying 7 to 9 hours a day, still taking significant breaks in between, but I also studied on weekends. So that's what worked for me. Once I got closer to it, I got actually more motivated because I was like, I need to know my stuff and I don't feel prepared yet. So I need to make sure that I'm studying enough to stay on top of things. But this is a huge, huge tip. And this not only goes for studying for the exam, but your entire time in undergrad and your internship and everything. You know this, you have to do this, but you might not always be doing it. Prioritize your health and well-being. This includes your physical health and your mental health. Drink enough water, eat nutritious foods, exercise, get out of the house, get some freaking sunlight, do things you enjoy, relax. You have to, because if you don't, you will burn out and make things way worse. I made sure, especially when I was studying for this exam, that I spent way more time doing other things, which also helped me prime my brain for when I was sitting down and studying. So do not think, okay, I'm gonna be studying 12 hours a day, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., not doing anything else with my life, because you will hate it and you will not do well. It's so also counterintuitive to not, especially when you're in the field of dietetics. Like, you preach to other people that they should be prioritizing those things. You need to be prioritizing them too. Practice what you preach, folks. With that said, let's talk about the study materials I used to get through this exam. I was so against buying anything else other than my actual exam that I reached out to my program advisor and I asked her if other students had passed the exam with just the free materials we got from our internship, which was a handout with all 4 domains that are going to be on the exam, templates and all of that stuff. I really just used their handout, but I also got a Pocket Prep subscription free from them as well. I asked, can I just use the handouts and Pocket Prep to pass this exam? And she said yes. She had had many students who had just used those. So that was a green light for me, thinking, okay, I can't get bombarded with other people telling me that I need to buy these things. I am just going to use my free resources and see where that gets me. If I failed, at least I have a benchmark and I know what else I need to supplement. I ended up just using my own internship's handout, Pocket Prep, which even if you have to pay for Pocket Prep, I highly recommend it. Those questions are going to be most similar to the exam. I also got my hands on the Gene Inman questions, but by the time I got my hands on them, it was so close to my exam that I only ended up answering about 300 of them. My biggest tip for you is once you go through the material in the handouts, do as many practice questions as possible. In fact, do practice questions while you are going through the handouts. What I would do in the beginning was I would go through handouts, I'd get through like 10 to 20 pages, and then I would answer a good chunk of Pocket Prep questions at the end of the day to kind of test my knowledge, see where there are gaps, if I need to go back to certain things, and then I'd keep doing that. So I would do a mixture of reading the handouts, taking notes, and doing the Pocket Prep questions. And that went on for the first 5 weeks. Once I got up to a week out, I actually started making flashcards on Quizlet. I made 608 flashcards. I didn't even study them once. I just typed them in. The act of typing them in and making my own questions helped me. If I had time, I definitely would have studied them, but once I got down to the wire, I realized I really did not have enough time to get through these practice questions, study my flashcards. It just wouldn't have happened. I would sit down and I would mimic the exam by taking around 125 to 145 practice questions. I would time myself to make sure that I was on track. The only thing is with the Gene Inman questions, they're very bland and dry. They're not going to be very similar to what you'll see on the exam. You want to search for more situational based questions that are going to test your critical thinking skills. This is unlike any other exam, and that's why I took the time to research it before starting to study, because I had heard that it's not like anything else that I've taken in college. So understanding that really helped me prepare my study plan and know what I wanted my plan to look like for those 6 weeks. Something that I struggled with a lot was negative self-talk. I would literally flip-flop and do a 180 every 2 minutes where I'd say, I got this, I'm so smart, I know all this material, and then I would like read through something and be like, I know absolutely nothing and I'm going to fail. You need to understand, you've been through undergrad, you've been through your internship, possibly even a master's program, you know your stuff. Everything you're gonna be studying for the most part for this exam is just review. So focus on those topics that you really need more work on. Like if I got a question wrong in a practice question, I would really try to understand why I got that wrong. Not everything about this exam is about memorizing material, just knowing things generally and how they work. Do not try and memorize things. You need to understand things. like really front, back, forward, sideways, review it different ways. And once you get to questions, always try and rule things out. If you don't know something 100%, like you can't read the question without looking at the answers and say, it's this. Make sure you're weeding out questions that are 100% not true, because usually you can cross out one or two of the answers right off the bat. You'll know that there are certain things that won't add up in a question, and then you can at least narrow it down to two. And at that point, it is a 50-50 shot, but then really think about why one answer is right and the reasons for the other answer not being right. Think more so about why certain answers to questions are not right instead of just looking for the right answer, if that makes sense. That's how I would approach questions, and I think that's what really helped me succeed with this. So now you know where you have to start and how you finish. When you're done taking that exam, you're gonna have to answer a stupid 12 question long survey that you just wanna get through to see your score. I am so happy that they let you see your score. If I had to wait a month, I would be a nervous wreck every single day, and that would suck. So I'm glad they show you it almost right away. It is extremely nerve-wracking. I know my nerves played a role in my performance. I don't think I did as well as I would have if I was more calm. That's the name of the game. You're gonna be a nervous wreck going into it that day. So just make sure that you go in with a clear head. I did meditation the night before and the morning of the exam to try and clear my head, which was very difficult, but I prayed a lot about this because, you know, that was important to me. Everything worked out the way it was supposed to. This entire journey was absolutely insane. I can't say it went by in the blink of an eye because it was a lot of work and it was really hard, but it's going to feel so good when you're finally done. So I hope you got value out of this video. If you did, like it, share it with your fellow dietetic interns, friends who are looking into nutrition, who might want to pursue this field. You can do it. You are so capable. Subscribe if you are not already. I make a lot of different videos on food, nutrition, and exercise. Definitely check that out, and follow my social medias, follow my TikTok, follow my Instagram. I make other content on there as well. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It was a lot, I know. There you have it. That's my life. That's what I've done for the past 4 years. I hope it can help you do something similar. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, week, night, whenever you're watching this, and I will see you later.